Live from the Emerald City in Seattle, Washington, the UFO, Bigfoot, and paranormal hotspot of the Pacific Northwest. Coming directly to you, listening in around the world, this, my friend, is Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, occupying the captain's chair tonight for SOR headquarters. We welcome everyone tonight to tonight's show and all of our listeners on the digital side at the Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always find our archived shows for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Child Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Child Charities today. You can find him on our website. And tonight we are blessed to have a wonderful guest on. Tonight his name is Alex Chionetti, and he is, of course, one of the prime forces behind the Ancient Aliens television series. So we're going to have to ask him about that and all the interesting things that are coming up in his new world and what he's doing right now. Of course, we have Peter Davenport with us from the National UFO Reporting Center to start off the show at the very top of the hour here. So let me do this. Let me welcome everyone back onto the show here, and we'll get started. Hello, Alex. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Wonderful. If you can get close to that microphone, we'll get your volume as loud as we possibly can.
Yes, I am.
And Peter Davenport, are you there?
Ready, willing, and able.
All right. All set. As soon as my music dies down, and it's any moment now, Peter, you'll be able to take over and regale us of, actually it's been a full 2 weeks since you and I have talked last. So I think we have some stuff to catch up on the UFO sightings around the planet.
Yeah, we've had a lot of sightings, Michael, and I've got 7 that I've selected out of sightings that have come in just in the last week and a half since we were last on the air. One of them is particularly interesting. I think it was on the 16th of March, I received a call from a gentleman who described himself as a former U.S. Navy fighter pilot from the 1960s. And he sounded very legitimate, in my opinion. He described the situation that he was involved in over Albuquerque, New Mexico. He thinks it was in October of 1968. He was flying an F-8 Crusader, single-place jet fighter. He was doing about 600 knots. He must have been quite high. He saw a disc-shaped object streak up to his left wing and position itself just outboard his left wing, and it was tracking his aircraft. It had come from the front of him, from his quartering left, from what he said, and it suddenly just reversed its direction of travel, positioned itself on his left wing. He said that his immediate reaction was to turn away from it, of course, to put distance between him and that unidentified disc. And so he did that, but the object apparently dipped down below his aircraft and suddenly appeared on his right wing tip. I would like to have this gentleman on, but so far we have not received a written report, and that's one of the hard and fast criteria I use. I've got to have a written report from these people so I know they're serious. Sometime in the future, perhaps we can have him on.
Oh my, that would have been a sighting that he had as a military pilot in October of '68. And where was this located again?
He was over Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Wow.
And the minor irony is my brother, well, I have an older brother who lived in Albuquerque at the time. I told him about the story. He found it quite interesting. It goes to show that these events can occur right around us all the time, and people don't know about them.
Well, yeah. I mean, this totally predates all the military pilots nowadays that are showing us gun camera footage. Can you imagine? This has been going on for all that period of time, at least.
When he landed, he said he was greeted by some intelligence types, characters, who interviewed him. But interestingly, Michael, they did not tell him not to talk about it. He has not talked about it for, what's that, 51, 52 years. And his censorship has been self-imposed. He just automatically assumed in 1968 that they didn't want him to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, I'll bet.
Maybe we can, if I get a report from him, I'll ask him whether he would like to come on the program and tell his own story.
Oh, that would be really great. That would be fascinating to hear it right from the experiencer's mouth. And obviously it's impressed him over the years, so he probably still remembers some of the details.
Yeah. He was
Fascinating.
very convincing, very sober-minded individual.
All right.
I look forward to bringing him to the Spaced Out Radio audience sometime soon. But it's a classic case of people always want to talk about their sighting, but talking about their sighting doesn't do a bit of good, as far as I can tell. You've got to write it down and capture the facts and preserve them so we can post a report to let people know about it.
Yeah.
The next case I'd like to talk about comes to us from North Carolina. On the 17th of March, Galt Dale described an incident that lasted 5 minutes. It occurred at 9:20 p.m. East Coast time, again on Wednesday, the 17th of March. He was sitting on the beach with a couple friends surveying the night sky when they saw a triangular craft. The tip of it, the nose of it, was glowing red, orange, and purple. Came at them from the ocean side, came from the southeast. It moved in a very strange manner, he says. It was jerking and moving left and right in a very abrupt fashion. And what makes it very interesting is, as it got closer to them, the nose of the object, of the triangular object, appeared to change color from that original red, orange, and purple-like color to a white color, and to their great amazement, a white object shot out of the larger object. First seen.
Oh my.
And it paused, the ejected object paused momentarily, and then suddenly streaked off to the west and disappeared from their sight. Very detailed description of what had happened. And he closes his description by saying he's never seen anything like this, but his impression was he was looking at something that was very high tech, principally because of the speeds involved. He said the ejected object moved off very rapidly, faster than an aircraft could have done.
Wow. Now, we have not heard very many reports of UAP being expelled from UAP. Yet now it's really starting to get more complicated, it sounds like.
I've had a few of them. One comes to mind in particular from about 5 years ago in Michigan. Two healthcare workers were at a patient's home, and they had a short break. They went up on the roof and were looking out the night sky, and they saw an event, the likes of which I just described, occur. Forgot the name of the city, the nearby city, but every once in a while we do get a report like this in which an object is detected from a larger object.
You know, Peter, and I keep going back to the fact that your reports over the decades have shown us that these things can travel stealthily without lights. And for some reason, they're not minding using running lights, or whatever you want to call them, navigation lights, or, to get our attention, because you would think that they have the total capability of doing whatever they're doing without, using any lights to call attention to themselves. So that's fascinating that's happening more and more. Yeah,
they clearly have their own agenda, their own technology, and they appear to know what they're doing. Not very often that you hear of a UFO bumping into a commercial airliner, although there are a few cases in which that appears to have happened. They seem very skilled at what they do. Thank heavens.
Yeah.
The next report I'd like to share with our audience comes from Levant, Maine. 20th of March, Saturday, I believe that was, a week ago yesterday, at 8 p.m. A gentleman describes that he was driving towards the city of Bangor through the city of Levant when he noticed two amber spheres hovering over a farm. He estimated that they were about 300 feet off the ground. They were absolutely silent. They didn't move, that he could tell, although he was driving. And he observed them for 5 minutes as he drove towards Bangor. He got to a point where he could stop conveniently and survey these objects. And he was just amazed by them, flabbergasted. Well, as he drove home, he observed a third object over a field in the vicinity of Bangor, Maine. And this was now not an orange or not a yellow light, but rather an orange sphere that was positioned, hovering, motionless and totally silently above a farm field. So, it's yet another case of red or orange or yellow spheres, unidentified and behaving in a strange fashion. So,
yeah, my goodness. That is in way up in Maine. Oh my goodness.
Central part of Maine.
Yeah.
That's pretty far north.
And you say that he estimated this thing was quite low to the ground, it sounds like.
He estimates they were within 300 feet, although trying to estimate height or size or speed at any time of a strange object that you've never seen before is very difficult, of course.
Yeah, good point.
It's difficult at night. But for my next report, I'd like to shift over to a neighboring state of Maine, over to New Hampshire. This is a report submitted by an adult male for a sighting in Peterborough, New Hampshire, way up in the northern reaches of New Hampshire, on Thursday, the 25th of March at 8:05 p.m. He reports that he was driving on his way to a park with his children. They were apparently going to camp overnight, although they may have reconsidered that after their sighting. And they saw an object hovering motionless just above the trees. He said it was much larger than any kind of drone he could have imagined, and they estimate that it was about 30 feet in diameter. Well, the shape, the bottom, the ventral surface, had a row of white lights. I presume, based on what he says here in his report, white lights around the flange of the craft. And in the center of these white lights was another light, apparently a much larger light, although he doesn't say how large. Middle of the ventral surface of this craft. They drove under it and it started to fly away quickly, disappeared from their sight in a matter of seconds. He said it followed them for a few seconds and then just dropped to the horizon.
Oh my, Peter, those are the kinds of cases you wonder if we could get more information or talk with them personally, whether they had any missing time, if they're that close of a sighting, and it seems to be hovering right over their position. You never know what might have happened.
Absolutely. I wish, Michael, I had the resource, a facility, and staff, and a budget that would allow that kind of question, and it's a good one, that kind of question to be answered. It takes resource to do it, and most of all, time.
Yes. And Lord knows you spent decades up at this point doing exactly that, just answering the hotline and taking reports. I mean, there's not a lot more time you can spend getting into the details and everything, other than things like that you broke back in 1997, the Phoenix Lights story. I mean, that basically overwhelmed you and the center for a period of time.
I'm living in a condition of constant overstress. All my resources are being stretched thin. So all I'm doing is what I'm able to do with the amount of time and resource I have. Better than nothing, I argue.
Well, and you've got Christian Stepien as your webmaster, who has just been a trooper all these years as well. Thank God for him.
And I'd like to move on to another report. This one from the 26th, just 2 days ago, Friday morning at 3:02 a.m. The gentleman who submitted this report, I talked to him just this morning. He submitted a wonderful report. Professional trucker, he was driving up in our neck of the woods, Michael, driving from Quincy to Wenatchee, Washington. And as he was driving to the north, he saw a red orb traveling from east to west at very high speed. He estimates that it may have been 500 to 1,000 feet in the air. And he says it crossed the sky faster than any aircraft he's ever seen. No sound, he emphasizes, no sound, no exhaust or no trail behind it. Seemed like a shooting star, but he said with no tail, it was not a meteor. He said it goes on to report that it's the weirdest aerial phenomenon he's ever seen. And he said it crossed the sky and from horizon to horizon in approximately 5 seconds. And the one thing I didn't preface with is sharing with our audience this gentleman's credentials. He retired from the U.S. Navy, where he was served in the U.S. Naval Aviation Division, working with helicopters. So he's more than familiar with things in the sky and what they look like and what their lighting should look like and so on. I can't imagine he would be deceived by a conventional aircraft.
Yeah, what a quite qualified witness. Oh my goodness, to then be out on the highway. You know, I take my hat off to all those truckers out there who literally make the country run with delivering all the goods and services that we need 24 hours a day. But just imagine being out there in the middle of the road with nothing. And, you know, of course, we know what eastern Washington looks like at midnight. It's like going through Roswell, New Mexico desert somewhere. And it's got to be quite amazing to run across something like that just, like you said, traverses the entire nighttime sky in less than 5 seconds with no sound. That's fascinating.
I would consider turning around and going the other direction, I think. I would park around the lonely section of rural Washington.
And I'm hoping that he was in contact with other trekkers in the area for his own moral support, because you would think that those guys could talk with one another and kind of triangulate things as well.
That's a good point. It's strange that people don't make a bigger fuss about this than I feel they should. Go to the press, for example. One of the things I recommend to people who call the hotline is, first of all, submit a written report. Secondly, submit any photographic evidence they have. Third, have any other witness submit a supplementary written report. And then gather up all the people and all the reports and go to the local news media, radio, television, and newspapers. Try to get some publicity, because I estimate for every person who sees a craft, there may be dozens, hundreds, or thousands of people who saw the same thing, but for one reason or another, they don't want to share it with somebody else. It's very strange. And it explains why we know so little about the UFO phenomenon.
Yeah.
I've been investigating it for almost 74 years now.
Yes, you have. Oh my goodness. Well, fascinating stuff. Do you have any other reports?
Yeah, I've got one from St. Petersburg, Florida. This is a very interesting report. A group of 4 people were out on a blanket on St. Petersburg Beach. This is yesterday morning at 2 a.m. East Coast time. And they decided to go out there and sit and admire the clear night sky and have a drink or two. And all of a sudden, their attention was drawn to a very large white light, intensely bright, that appeared to be approaching their position. From what direction, she doesn't say, so I can't report that. But it was extremely bright and moving extremely rapidly. And the interesting thing is the manner in which it moved. She said it moved horizontally, darting left and right as it approached them. So we'll never know what it was, but a bizarre object that remains unknown.
Well, and that kind of movement again, Peter, almost is kind of a situation where it looks like the object is trying to keep or gather and keep their attention. You know, I mean, obviously, I think those crafts can move very smoothly as well, but if they're jig-jagging like that in front of their faces and they're very bright, you would think that there's a purpose for that as well. And again, you wonder if there was any missing time to that group that saw that from the beach.
Yeah. One interesting aspect of how it moved, she adds, initially as it approached them, it was jinking. A fighter pilot would say it was jinking, or darting left and right and left and right. Stop that, it disappeared for just a second, fraction of a second. They couldn't see it at all. It suddenly reappeared and then shot off across the horizon very quickly.
Yeah.
I doesn't say how long it took for it to go from their vicinity to gone over the horizon.
Yes. And of course, anybody that would be into this, hypnotic regression process would kind of maybe hone in on that exact moment where they say all of a sudden the light went out, and when it came back on, it just disappeared, streaked off in the distance. That's when you would want to concentrate to find out what did anything happen within that moment when the light went out.
That's always the question: is how much do we not know about what happened? You're correct, Michael.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Well, Peter, let's do this. Let's make sure that our listening audience tonight, if there's any new folks out there, gosh, we got Ho Kim, we've got Dave, and a bunch of folks that are joining on our Facebook page. Some of them probably don't know the contact info for the National UFO Reporting Center, so why don't we start giving that info to them?
Be happy to share it. If anybody's seen a UFO or feels they've seen what may have been a UFO within the last week, they're invited to call the telephone hotline, which has been the same number for 46 years. It's area code 206-722-3000. That number again is 206-722-3000. And they will almost invariably will hear me on the line. If they've seen a UFO or if they report it to the hotline, I invite them to submit a detailed written report in which they explain where they were, what the time and date were, what direction they were looking, all the details surrounding their report, or their sighting. And that online report form can be found on our website, which is ufocenter.com, ufocenter.com. If anybody wishes to correspond with us via the postal system, our mailing address is P.O. Box 700, Davenport, Washington, like my last name. P.O. Box 700, 700, Davenport, Washington, and the zip code is 99122. Thank you for allowing me to share that, Michael.
Yes, of course. And I always like to encourage folks that if you've got a few extra donation dollars, please send them to New Fork or Peter Davenport. It doesn't take a whole lot of money to help with the monthly phone bill, internet connections, and all those kinds of things. So any kind of monetary help that Peter can get would be most appreciated after all these decades of hard work that he's put into getting the information out to the public. So good job, Peter.
Well, thank you, Michael. That's all I have tonight. Look forward to doing it again next week.
Wonderful. Great report. Take care of yourself. Have a wonderful week. And we will see what happens this coming week.
Thank you. Same to you, and good night to Alex as well.
Yeah, very nice.
Nice to hear you.
After so many years. Yeah, thanks.
Good night.
Good night, Peter.
Bye.
Okay. Here we go.
Is that there?
We're here, Alex. Let me give you
Very good.
a decent introduction here. Alex Chionetti is an award-winning journalist, explorer, and filmmaker, a consulting producer for several seasons of Ancient Aliens. His documentaries have been broadcast on Fox, NBC, A&E, the History Channel, and many other international networks. Born in Buenos Aires, he immigrated to the United States in the mid-1980s to continue his studies at different schools, including MIT, USC, and UCLA. Early on, Alex worked with legendary filmmaker Roger Corman. His research life ever since has been devoted to lost civilizations and extraterrestrial visitations. And I am just honored to be able to welcome Alex Chionetti to Spaced Out Sunday tonight. Thank you for joining me, Alex.
No, it's a honor. Yeah, it's a very good time. Thank you for having me, and also thanks to Mark Eddy to think about being a guest to your show. Yeah, and Mr. Davenport is also an all acquaintance for good memories in the past when I used to live in California and listen to his Sightings and programs, his bench work of in ufology, in the West Coast.
Yeah. When he
in the state of Washington, right?
When he was based out here in the Seattle area, and basically on Coast to Coast, he would do his weekly updates and those kinds of things. So I remember as well, Alex, staying up late at night just to hear the first 10 minutes of Coast to Coast, to hear what Peter had to say. So we are blessed to be able to have him every show that we do, that he's available for the first half hour. And thank you for helping me kind of just kick back and relax and listen to the sighting reports. Any of those sighting reports sound interesting to you?
Yes, when he mentioned the New Mexico 1968. 1968 was a very important flap. Was a UFO wave all over the world, and when I started to research in the late 70s as a field researcher, as a ufologist, with a big part of my life, I review all the historical cases in North America and South America. 68 and 78 were very important. Well, the last big wave was 1978, but 10 years before, I review many cases also in South America, who were very interesting cases, and we don't have that type of ufology anymore. We don't have close encounter of the third kind. That looks like the system, the intelligence behind this phenomena has been changing, and no more almost humanoids, And we in 1968 we used to have many close encounters of the second kind, many landings, and I really am nostalgic. When I was a teenager and I used to go to the Argentinian Pampas to investigate this landing, when the people, the very candid witness, gauchos or peasants, they said, "Oh, the object landed and 3 humanoids come out from the object," and they wave and they disappear, and they speed up, right? And I remember I used to go and take traces of these rings, these burning kind of circles, and with so much hope, and trying to apply the scientific ufology, As you know, you didn't read the biography. I was a disciple of Dr. Anne Hynek, and I was the co-founder of a group, the Ufos, in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, in the late 70s, early 80s. But it's after so many years, we saw the evolution of the phenomenon, and we saw so much and so many changes and so many kind of bread and circus, right?
Yeah, no, you've been involved in this field for a long time, all the way back to the Ted Bloucher days, I would imagine, the trace landing studies and those kinds of things. J.L. and Hynek and Sifos, and oh my word, that is quite a history that you bring to, for instance, the new television series that's been on for seasons now, Ancient Aliens. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in Ancient Aliens.
Oh, as I worked in film and television many years, I used to be in contact with one of my clients, A&E History Channel, and I was trying to develop series and specials about lost civilizations and ufology. I was involved with the UFO Hunters series. I was consultant for several seasons, and that was a very great show in that time before Ancient Aliens. And one of the executives who was head of development, he introduced me to a company called Prometheus Entertainment. And in that time, Prometheus was developing a special about Indiana Jones. And and I was involved with the movie Indiana Jones. I was consultant to the last one called Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls.
Oh wow, that was a great one.
Right, and this company was doing a special, and about Indiana Jones, and the last segment was about the Crystal Skulls, and Giorgio Tsoukalos was involved, and the producer invited me to bring the subject of the Tajos Caves. With this subject, I have been researching in the last 35 years or more, all my life, and it's part of a book I just published with Inner Tradition and Simon & Schuster last year, called The Mystery of the Tajos Caves. But finally, in the
how do you spell the Celios case?
Tajos, Tayos, Tajos.
Tayos, T-A-Y, oh, Tauski, T-A-Y.
Tajos.
Okay,
Yeah.
T-A-Y-O-S.
Is the name of the birds, oil birds who live in these caves, no?
Okay.
It's different of stems. Stems in Spanish is tallos, but this is with Y.
Got it.
And in that way, I met these producers. But I used to know Giorgio. We used to lecture together in the East Coast, and with Giorgio, we're supposed to do an expedition to these caves in the mid 2000s. But finally, I lost contact with him, and he reappeared later in the shows, and I was invited to work in the developing as a consultant, producer, researcher of the pilot and the first season and the second season. And I really worked very hard. I developed hundreds of segments, and they're still repeating the segments, and they're still using the material like 10 years ago.
Wow.
And basically research. But one of the important subjects of the Ancient Aliens was the relation with Erich von Däniken. But Erich von Däniken, in the mid-70s, wrote the bestseller called The Gold of the Gods. And that the book covered the mystery of the Tajos Cave. And that is the relation. And for the Ancient Aliens, one of the most viewed episodes was the segment I developed and I produced about the Tajos Caves for the second season, no? And it's still one of the favorites for the fans.
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, if you could do us a favor and maybe synopsize what the Tajos case is about for maybe the listeners that might not know.
Right, it's the people didn't remember that segment in that episode. And the Tajos Caves, there are kind of underground system of caverns and tunnels in the middle of the Ecuadorian Amazon, between Peru and Ecuador, and in the kind of 100 square miles exists this system of caves. And they get more famous when Däniken went, and he claimed he descended, and following the research of an explorer and miner, a mining person named Janos Morix, who was a Hungarian-Argentinian prospector. And I connect with the story was the sidekick of Morix was an old friend of mine, or a Basque Argentinian speleologist named Julio Goyena Wab. And I grew up in connection with Julio, and this series of legends and research about this system of tunnels runs below the Andes, below the Americas. And also this connects with the famous or infamous theory of the hollow earth. If you remember the famous stories of Admiral Byrd and the hollow earth, which was fashioned in the 60s, 70s. And coming back to the caves are important for two things. In this kind of deep core voyage to the center of the earth legend exists a kind of a megalithic city below the air, 1 or 2 miles below the air. What I have the experience to be the first who recorded in video, digital video, 10 years ago in a series of 4 expeditions I did. But in 1970s, our former first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong, was in the caves, was invited to be part of one of the largest expeditions of speleology in the world, and was organized by this Scottish friend. He's a lay friend. He died a decade ago through Stanley Hall, and he invited Armstrong. But Armstrong was a symbol of the Scottish heritage. He was another Scot, as Hall. And Hall was an engineer from Edinburgh, and his dream, after he read the book of Daniken, said, I have to see this. But the second layer of the story, connected with this original discovery of the caves, Carlos Morix, and my friend Julio Doraguado, was the finding of a golden metal library of giant books were supposed to be the record of a lost civilization before the flood. And this connect with also legends on the Andes about this pre-Diluvian culture. And we know all the mysteries of the Incas, how the Incas really moved and built these cities, the stone cities, in high altitude, moving blocks. So the Incas and the Egyptians were the only who had the power to carve these blocks, this stone of 500, 1,000 tons, kind of massive boulders, carved boulders, and move it for hundreds of miles. But the interesting thing in the Cave of Tallos, we found this type of structures below the earth. Not only the surface that you could find in the Valley of the Incas, Sacred Valley of the Incas, as Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, Pisac, etc. And this type of, this cave have kind of artificial drilling, artificial passages, and the separation of galleries holding the roof through cornerstone and through massive kind of support megalith or kind of rectangular blocks, massive blocks. So we found this kind of a lost engineering type of technique. That is the reason the Tallos Cave is so important. And for many years I have been battling the kind of the official archaeology or official geology, debunking the importance of this hypothesis of the artificial type of construction.
Oh my, and you're saying how far underneath the ground these things are constructed?
Well, the main cave, the one for part of the expedition with Neil Armstrong in 1976, the survey reached around 5 miles of longitude and 2 miles of deepness, of profundity. Yeah.
My goodness, over 1,000 feet deep.
Right. And
yeah.
And you have to descend kind of 100, kind of 500 feet through a vertical descent, and it's very complicated. But in the surroundings, there are more caves with artificial qualities and with kind of geological anomalies, plus some kind of structures. I found some frames covered by kind of gold dust, and maybe this gives the origin of the legend on the caves. No, so we found this kind of rectangular carvings, and in the ceiling of the rocks. Another cave with several miles, kind of 20, 30 miles from the original one. The main one is called the Quangos Cave. And this cave have this kind of underground city. Yeah.
And you said there were some golden books that were discovered down. Has anyone ever been able to interpret what those books are saying?
Yes, there have been some kind of researchers in Ecuador who start to do some kind of analysis. The complete library never was found. The discoverers of the place, they decide to hide it in one of the hundred of caves, in the maze of the caves. And was an expedition also financed by the Mormon Church in 1968. And in that one, Morris and my friend Julio were involved, but they decided don't bring these people to the exact location. But they were afraid they were going to take over we could call the treasure. The same one was the expedition with Neil Armstrong and Hall. Morris decided don't be part, but he was trying to protect the place. And instead to kind of guide it to the side, decided to hide it and never more talk about. And this was lost for posterity, unfortunately. But Morris died, and Julio died too, and still we have some traces. For example, it's a collection called the Father Crespi collection of relics, and that was in the city of Cuenca. Crespi also died, but he used to collect from the Indians many of these plates, and the originals they used to tell to Father Crespi, this comes from the caves of Fylth. And it's interesting. Some of the very long golden books later were sold to the Museum of Central Bank after the death of Crespi. And others still remain in the dungeons of this Salesian church. But the official archaeologists ignore this kind of golden sheets. Some are made by copper, others are made by thin sheets of gold and silver and other kind of fine metals. And they have kind of some hieroglyphical, Semitical, and type of symbols. And some researchers connect this with the Phoenicians, and some other kind of researchers connect with the culture called the Canary Culture. The Canary Culture was another pre-Inca group, ethnic group, who built the city of Ingapirca, which is a small Machu Picchu in the territory of Azuay, Cañar. And what's interesting, but these people used to build this kind of walls similar to the Incas, but also in many of the graves and the tombs, we found, researchers found some artifacts with hieroglyphical and Mesopotamic symbols. That means was some connection with cultures coming from the east, so coming from the Middle East. Also navigators who come through the Atlantic, maybe they enter through the Amazonian River and get to the core of the jungle, of the Andes. And we know the Amazonian cultures, they are very old, and they were immigrating from east to west, and also in the bottom of the cave of Tajos, in that expedition of 76 was found evidence of human bones, was a kind of, and also relics, metals, and one typical shell called the spondylus. The spondylus is a shell only we found it in the Pacific Ocean. It's a pink shell, and very beautiful kind of color. And that was venerated by the Andean cultures. And we found it in the bottom of the cave. That means some travelers coming from the west, from the Pacific Ocean in direction to the Amazonian basin, they kind of colonize and they make settlements in this cave. This cave was sacred 1,000 years ago, and it's still sacred for the Indians who live in the area called the Shuars. The Shuars are the new name for the Jibaros. If you remember the old Hollywood movies, the Jibaros would shrink the head of the hunters, and it's the only two cultures in the world who shrink the head of their enemies: the Papua Guinea in New Guinea, and the Jibaros in the Equatorian Basin, no? And the Shuar Indians have a genesis of their culture, saying two brothers. It's always two brothers in the end, no? Who create the genesis, as the Aliar brothers who create the Inca dynasty, the origin of the empire coming from a cave. But in this case, these brothers, they were chasing a tiger, and they get lost inside of the maze, and they found this was the genesis, the creation of their world, no? And the world too of the Tajos caves. The origin of the name comes from these birds. These birds are kind of blackbirds, more bats than birds, who then navigate inside, flying inside of the cave using ecosonar. And these birds are very venerated by the Indians, and they do this kind of pilgrimage 2 times of the year to harvest these birds, no?
Those birds, do they have actual feathers?
Yes, the birds are similar to kind of between dove and an owl, and they exist in many caves along the South America, and they were discovered by Alexander Humboldt, who was the great explorer who covered the natural world of all South America, starting with Venezuela, and he was the first who classified these species, no? And he illustrated and drawn them. And these birds have a special kind of what we call hairs in the peaks, as that used for navigation too in the darkness. But during the day they sleep, but at night they go to the outside to retrieve kind of seeds, to eat seeds, and they bring it to the cave. And that is the cave. They have a kind of a forest inside, but the plants grow up in the soil inside, and it's very eerie kind of landscape between this kind of forest, and you see it through some cracks on the ceiling of the caves, letting the light coming inside and illuminating some paths. But also we found giants, spiders. We have a kind of giant snakes, and it's a kind of looks like the story of Jules Verne, no? Voyage to the center of the earth, with kind of luminous mushrooms or
yes.
But the interesting thing is I wish I had some pictures to show you, but it's kind of it's in my book. Yeah.
Yeah, let's show your book there.
Yeah, and this is the book. And I have some interesting pictures. For example, one arc is a sort of massive arc with bricks as part of the construction. And you could see also cornerstones in both sides of this arc. This arc used to be called the Arc von Däniken, now it's called the Arc Janus Morix, but we found perfect polishing sign of tunnels as a kind of a machine to polish kind of roof and ceilings used today in construction was used in that time. And we don't know if it was 2,000, 3,000 or 10,000 years ago. We need more research about the natural and the artificial aspects of the cave.
And these tunnels that you're talking about that seem to be artificially made, are they large enough to stand up in? What are the size of them?
Oh, yes. We have different sizes. Some you have to crawl. You have to really be bowing and kind of your head. And other are kind of very giant axes. Kind of you could pass through this kind of ceiling as the size of the subway. And that tunnel is open to bigger galleries. And I found this kind of constructions with the steps going up and down are similar to the pre-Incas and Incas type of structures with the rock is cut with perfection as a kind of laser cut. And looks like, well, some kind of the structures were coming from outside. So we're descending to the caves to some time of lost technology. Yeah, but it's a different incrustation of geology, which is not the same geology of the interior of the cave.
Do you suppose the technology that you're witnessing, I'm just speculating here off the top of my head, was from a civilization that was on the surface that went underground, or do you suppose it was civilization that always lived underground and was doing this?
Well, there were two currents, yes. Morix was thinking this kind of construction were part of a lost kind of human beings called the Taltos or Velas, who also used to be below the Carpats, below the mountains in Europe. And that connected with his Hungarian tradition. No, well, he was Hungarian and Magyar. And the Magyars are very kind of wild people with the lost knowledge of the Indo-European kind of culture, no? And they are lost in the night of the times of the genesis of the Huns, and who were also considered savages, but they were very advanced culture too, kind of 2,000 years ago, before the Attila, the Hun, no? And they left a lot of amazing treasures in the center of Europe, no? Also the language, the interesting things, we found the same type of semiology and semantics. For example, with this explorer Morix went to visit the tribes as the Colorado Indians, he was talking in Hungarian, and the Indians understand perfect what he was talking. So that means also the language are connected 10,000 years ago. And as I always said, Columbus was the last one who was not the first to discover America.
Well,
yeah, they were all, yeah.
With that,
they were Carthaginians, the Visigoths, yeah, the Sumerians, the Phoenicians, yeah, they all the kind of pre-Atlantic. That is also connects our story connect with the myth of Atlantis, and we cannot deny that. But the myth of Atlantis is in the Aztec, It's in the Incas, in the Aymara, in the middle of the Andes. We found this. The cultures decide to take refuge in the top of the mountains, also going below. That is, from my point of view, we have a continuation of that ancient cultures who were building these amazing stone cities in the surface, and they decide to go underground.
Okay.
To escape from cataclysms, to escape from earth changes. And that thing is happening today. We have been building atomic bunkers since the 40s, since the Cold War to now. And there are underground cities in Italy, in Switzerland, massive cities. We don't know about that, they keep it secret, but they exist. In the case of the next conflagration or hecatomb or Armageddon, the cities exist. And unfortunately, we will not escape from an upcoming nuclear war. It's part of the wild human nature. That is, unfortunately, that is coming. And the human race will be survived going below.
Yes, well, good point. With that statement, we're going to take a break, Alex, and we're going to be right back in 6 minutes or so at the top of our break. So hang on, we'll be right back with more Spaced Out Sunday after this.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
If you like it hot, real hot, then beat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblelicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit. Bumble, we're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby. And tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at thejobs.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and we have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Becker, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey Space Travelers, this is John Resnick, founder of the Chide and Chide Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chide Charities, just go to chidecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I can find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, the paranormal warrior, Michael Libby Hall. Thanks for joining me. We welcome back everyone listening in on terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 New Orleans, Louisiana. On the digital side, we are very proud to be on Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always check our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. And we are back now with my guest, Alex Chionetti, and we are talking ancient aliens and all sorts of things like that. Let's see if we can get Alex on the view there. There we go. Okay, gallery view.
Okay, yeah.
And welcome back. Thank you for that whole first hour. That was quite interesting.
Thank you.
Where are you living currently here in the United States?
I am in New Jersey on the Atlantic coast.
Ah.
I'm born next to the Atlantic. I am still in the Atlantic.
Yeah, you still are. Wonderful. And of course, the emerging spring weather hopefully is going to start getting a little bit better on the East Coast there. How did you survive? How did you survive this winter season this year? It was crazy.
Right. It was a lot of snow. Unpredictable. Yes.
Yeah.
It's cold or raining. It's always rain. It's
Yeah.
another London type of weather. But yeah, we survived the new floods.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a big problem everywhere when that happens, of course. But you're the kind of guy that has been doing this ancient alien research, UFO research for decades now. What is your opinion of what's happening currently? I'll tell you why I asked that question. I believe there is a major push by the powers that be, whoever they might be, to actually bring the public up to speed on some kind of disclosure of a reality. Do you have any feelings on that?
Oh yes, I know it's an acceleration. I didn't know we were going to have some revalidation, as so many years the people had been laughing of us, and no matter all the critique we have against the Stars Academy or the critique against Luis Elizondo and Christopher Mellon and company, and other hiding associates as Mr. Bigelow or company, so I think it's moving ahead, and it's the position of the U.S. Navy since the incident of the limits eclipsed also many obscure years of the Air Force and the Project Blue Book. And I have been witness also. I published the book of the memoirs of the last director of the Blue Book, Major Hector Quintanilla, who I was a friend with his family. And 20 years ago, I published in the group of Robert Bigelow, NIST, National Institute of Discovery and Science, and that was my historical contribution from that period, no? And I think this revivalism of the phenomena, no matter is going to have a turning point this in June, when we will see the Congress, what happened in the Congress and the Intelligence Committee, no? Head by Marco Rubio and company. I'm very expecting. I hope we will not have to face another kind of Watergate, cosmic Watergate. We have to kind of back again to the 70s. I remember Dr. Hynek, when I was very young, I started a friendship with him when he used to come to my country, and we used to have these long walks in the Andes too. We used to have these barbecues. He liked to cook. I remember he liked to cook meat, and we used to kind of have these long conversations, drinking some wine from the Andes too. And he was saying, look, maybe we are not going to discover the secret of the phenomenon, but we have to continue recollecting information and still do the best we can. But and he was the best, but he classified and he was reflecting with the scientific method what we could do. Unfortunately, after his death, the ufology started to be degrading and was coming through more showbiz than anything, surrounding more egos and the lack of cooperation of the scientists. I remember in December of 2017, a couple days before the DOD kind of implosion in the media through the New York Times, I I was with this astronomer, Neil deGrasse Tyson, in a lecture he was giving in my town. And after, backstage, after his lecture, I went to talk with him, and I said, Dr. Tyson, why is not a cooperation between scientists and ufologists and all these years? And he started to kind of scream and say, where are the UFOs? What? No, but where are the UFOs? And he pulled his phone. I started to get very, very shameful. And the same situation I have it when in the 80s, when I was studying in MIT, I went to a lecture of Carl Sagan. And after I went to see Dr. Sagan, but I was trying to interview him. And when he said, oh, when I said I was researching and I was involved with Hynek, so, oh, you're with Hynek, you believe in UFOs. I don't believe in extraterrestrials. I said, no, excuse me. And he escaped from me. And the same with this Neil deGrasse Tyson. That close mind had been the problem of we didn't get anywhere in the last 30 years. And still, ufology was a no man's land. And for example, I know Georgia was saying there in the show, oh, thanks ancient aliens, we have an opening the mind. It's true. The mind was opening, but I remember von Daniken never believed in the Ufo Sightings. I said that in a lecture I gave to the MUFON. He believed in the past, the visitation in the past were possible, but not in the present. And that is merging with Sagan. Sagan used to believe maybe they visit our historical past, but not the sightings today. But the only open mind was really the generation of James McDonald, Professor McDonald, Hynek, the Lorenzen couple, Jim and Colonel Lorenzen, and that were the real pioneers to really follow the phenomenon and to do the best we can. But the science, the universities and the academy, beyond the Surrock panel of 10, 15 years ago, we were kind of orphans in the way, and different. Well, we know the armies, the defense and intelligence were always behind. Unfortunately, we have to separate that things. And in a certain degree, we are advancing, but in another degree, we were kind of having an involution to the Cold War of the 60s. We're back to the Colorado, the Condor Report. we back to the kind of the Panel Robertson, and still we see the phenomenon is not danger for mankind. It's not any threat. We have this for the 30, 40 years. The phenomenon was approaching the planes and maybe nuclear bases, but nothing happened. And that philosophy, we have to put money to research UFOs as a defense factor, I think is a very ignorant aspect. Yeah. But I'm not agreeing with that part.
Well, that's great insight that you're giving us regarding the various scientific approaches that you have experienced from others like Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and then Alan Hynek, working with Alan Hynek. You know, you might be the only person that I've run across relatively recently that could give us an idea of your impressions of what Alan Hynek was really like. Of course, we all have the impression that he was a serious scientist that was kind of hired by the military to kind of debunk many of the reports, for many years. And then, of course, at one point, I think it was the Michigan swamp gas incident that kind of turned him around. But it sounds like you work with him quite closely. Could you give us maybe a little bit of a personal feeling of what you thought he was like?
Well, Ali was a real kind of scientist with an open mind. It was a generation who he survived the project book, but he kept all his curiosity. He had this kind of a child kind of imagination and push to the future, no? Push to what is coming for the next generation, no? O sea, he have the curiosity to see where this intelligence, they could come. They could come from the outer space. They could come from an advanced civilization, and they could fly. And I remember he always was remarking me, the UFOs, they don't really fly, but they project themselves. Kind of, and he always talk about the Moebius strip, always make the comparison of the maze of a deck of cards, no? The deck of cards and how they could travel passing through. And this, in that time, the hyperspace was in its diapers. We're talking about the late 70s, early 80s. We didn't have the theory of the superstrings. We don't have the black holes were also in its infancy, and no matter he was kind of trying to keep aside of the paranormal theory and the overshadow of the Jacques Vallée, but Jacques Vallée was all over the map with trying to find different interpretations, more with the mystical aspect or the psychological aspect. What is it's a reality too, no? Where are the UFOs, no? Where are all the machines, no? And how these machines they could really travel hundreds of thousands light years to come and scare one housewife and not seeing again. That's that benefit of the doubt was also Heineck. Heineck was kind of, he know he was going to die and don't see the result, but he was trying to keep in his disciples a kind of an input of continue the field research. For him, recollect the best information as the scientists of the future using this serious research. For example, the work of Davenport, that is one example of doing very painstakingly, step by step, year after year, decade after decade, collecting to create a predictive model. That is the reason my collaboration with Heineck was also feeding the UFOCAT. UFOCAT was a computer system. He was working also with Vallée and national scale, but also we cooperating international with cases from South America and Europe. And also my colleague Ballesteros was in Spain doing a great job with the UFOCAT. And Heineck and Dr. William Smith in that decade, 70s, 80s, were kind of feeding the IBM computers, trying to get these models. And using that in the future, I hope that the new generation of this kind of interesting ufologists in apply the method, the scientific method, using that information from past decades to feed the computers and find more predictive models. And that was one of the goals of the QFOS, the group of High.
Did you get involved at all with Robert Bigelow's attempt to get a hold of that database? I remember there was a big push for him to try to buy things up. No, nothing to do, really, no. Bigelow make a deception when he really didn't help us too much with the book of Quintanilla, and also he ignored my motion to research cattle mutilations in South America. And he was really a kind of particular character, no?
And also I have big deception of him, but he said he believed in the Bob Lazar story. in an interview I saw with in the Joe Rogan show, I saw it and I said, "Oh,
yeah,
I think he was kind of recopilating information all over, but keeping for himself. I don't think he's too generous with the rest of the people, keeping an organization who really could be more democratic with other people and other researchers who dedicate many years and many decades behind the phenomenon. And I started with the collection of metals, that the metal thing, and he was kind of buying and collecting. That should be for all the people, not for an elite group who want to go to colonize the space and other galaxies. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I think you're correct that it's organizations like Peter Davenport, like we talked with earlier on the show, that have been doing this for decades and getting the information out immediately to the public. Those are the important ones for sure. Now, let me ask you this. It sounds like, what did you know Dr. J. Allen Hynek during the time when he was tabbed to be a consultant on the Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie? Do you remember that film?
Of course. I was in 2017. I was elected by Spielberg people to do the same Hynek did it. Talk about the Close Encounters to the followers of the movie, the 4th anniversary. The movie was made in 1977, and through my friendship with Steven Spielberg Publishers, I was invited to try to do this kind of no advertising, but capturing the interest of the new generation through the social media, mainly. And I was explaining to the new people what were the Close Encounters, and in a series of 3 different digital emissions, I followed the same step of Dr. Hynek, but in the digital media. It was totally different 40 years before. What Hynek worked almost free for that production was very laughing what he gets kind of pay, but he exchanged to do advertising for the QFOs and for his magazine, the International UFO Reports. And in that period, I was starting to be field researcher, and I cannot deny when I saw that movie, I want to jump to the cosmic wagon, the cosmic train. That was really also, as we feel that today, with the new changes after 2017, it's kind of a very kind of magic 40 years,
Yeah.
And that have influence on so many young people, teenagers of that time, and I was trying to repeat that. Unfortunately, I was very limited what Sony Pictures Columbia did in November of 2017. I wish I could have more range, and I didn't feel so much cooperation of the media here in the States or internationally. I was trying to kind of do release and debates, but unfortunately the movie was controlled by a British company, and they want money and no ufology. And the idea was create debates in many countries, in Europe and South America, but I couldn't really have to pay from my own pocket the kind of this type of round tables all over, and it's always, that is a problem. And Hollywood had been bleeding the ufology and exploiting the extraterrestrial subject, but when we have to do research on ufology, we didn't go anywhere. For example, I have a friend, Douglas Trumbull, Douglas Trumbull created a great system. He was the special effects director of 2001, Star Trek, and of course, he created all the shit for Close Encounter of the Third Kind, the mothership. And Douglas, he created a system to record the UFOs in the maximum kind of level, no? Because this system is a scientific system, but also it's an optical system. But we have so many recordings of UFOs using the cellular, using cameras, and we don't really capture what is behind the thing. And I remember I was trying to help Douglas bringing his system called Ufo Talk, and who he gave up, and he really diseased, and he disabled his system. He kind of said, "No, nobody's helping." He disarmed it, and now he's abandoned the project. But I brought the project to Lucas, to Spielberg, and nobody wants to help. You see? But they help the box office, but they don't help the people who are pioneers and the people who are trying to do positive things. And also, I remember Bigelow was not interested either to help with that promissory system, no? To create more optical information using better cameras, using better lenses, using kind of spectrographers connected with the cameras. And still, some part of the ufology, well, I hope the guys in the Navy, they could create some kind of good objective kind of technical lab to research, no with the view of the fear of the defense or thinking is advanced prototypes. There are not advanced prototypes either from the Chinese or from the Russians. We know that. The thing that is kind of very prehistoric and very childish, and lack of reality regarding to the phenomenon. But I know the new generation doesn't really have the experience we have through many years of interest in
Well, looks like we lost Alex here for a moment. We'll see if he can join back on. If it was on his end or my end. I think it might have been on his end. Don't worry, we'll get him back here. Hey, Bjorn, Linda, thanks for joining me. Hope you guys are enjoying yourselves tonight. There we go. See if he can get reconnected.
Hello?
Hey, there you are, Alex. You're back. Yeah, don't worry.
Okay.
I got you again. Hey, I got to thinking, as a young man, since you knew Dr. Hynek so intimately well at that point, and you got to actually, walk together on the Argentinian beach to kind of pick his brain, what would you guys talk about?
Well, at that time, Jaime was trying to get access to some in the 60s. We have a famous sighting in Antarctica, in the Deception Island, and many governments, Argentina, Chile, Australia, and New Zealand, and UK, who have bases in Antarctica, they have this big sighting of objects, like 65, and they have volcanic eruption. Objects produce a perturbation and magnetic the magnetometer. And the magnetometers of the magnetometer.
Well, Alex, you're kind of cut out there for a while. So what I'm going to do is if you can hear me at this point, I think what we probably should have you do is get out of this meeting on Zoom and see if you can rejoin me back, because I think it's a bad. I think the connection, the connectivity on your end is kind of weak right now.
I have the blackout for a few minutes.
There you go. You're
Hello?
back. You're back now. I think you can hang on there with us. If it gets too bad, we'll have to just cut a little bit short tonight. But other than that, we'll see if the internet connection can still hang in there for the next few minutes. Yeah. So that is fascinating. So you were. I was going to ask you, what did you and Alan Hynek usually talk about when you got time together alone? Like, for instance, walking along the Argentine beach. What were you guys discuss?
Well, he was interested in many of my cases, and the cases I was researching. He considered me, I was the more active field researcher, but this kind of true, but I was really on the road all the time. He wants to hear the description. I researched a case where it was a giant UFO floating on the desert, and it was similar to the mothership of Close Encounters, and that was in 1980. That case happened in the desert, and we get the conclusion was a kind of a mirage. It was a mirage. It was not a really kind of mothership, but it was in this kind of was a combine of effects of UFOs and also a mirage together, no? And happened near a rocket base, and with Alan, kind of we went to the site and we started to make the measure of the weather report, the conditions, no? And also we brought Hynek to the aeronautics and the cosmonautic office. It was a project of the space office after one object crashed in the Andes and left a kind of a track, a blue track of on the trees in this hill, and we brought Alan to meet this major colonel of the Air Force, trying to get. He was optimistic he was going to get the report of this crash, but the officer didn't give us the kind of the report. And years later, I went to reopen the case also. Yeah, Allen was interested in another crash of all the cases from 1978. No, what I researched, and that was 1977 and 1978 were my kind of fire baptism in ufology, and I started to cover research in Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Peru, the countries around. And also was another important crash. We didn't know what it was, but between Bolivia and Argentina, in June of '78, was the winter in the southern hemisphere, and in our statistics, the cases climbed to that June, and that June was an object that crashed in the border between the two countries, and we didn't know what happened, but a complete mountain gets a landslide, and the object gets covered, and immediately the astronomers so the conspiracy theory was talking about U.S. retrieve what was below that kind of accident or landslide of one object fall and looks like was a kind of a missile, kind of a projectile. And Heine was interested in that case, of course, and we used to make comparison, and it was very interesting to see the level of entries and the method we were using in the field research. And I remember we follow not the MUFON handbook, but we follow the Alan Henry. Alan Henry was a scientist who worked for the UFOs, and he wrote a handbook of how to research UFOs in the late 70s. He was very happy we were using his method, to recollect information. And with Alan we talk about many things, how already the phenomenon was distorted by the media, how we could separate the collective imaginary from the objective information. For example, was interesting how the cases I was researching in that 78, the movie Close Encounter was researched also in the winter in July of 78, and before and after was different. But I remember I used to go to the interior, to the provinces, to the states, and so with common people, and I said, "But you saw the movie?" The people start to kind of exaggerate it. Oh, yes. As this case of we conclude was a mirage. The people saw the movie, and I said, "Oh yeah, it was a giant thing. We saw kind of a structure, and the top of the object was valid where it's for houses, for streets, and for kind of the same thing when we saw the mother ship, as also the special edition of the movie when he get inside. But we saw the things very remote, but we don't have the details,
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. It's fascinating to hear that when the movie came out, it affected potentially what witnesses saw in the desert with the mirage. In other words, they kind of use the pareidolia of their own minds to kind of attribute the Close Encounters movie stuff to what they saw.
Yeah, pareidolia is a good term, yes. Yeah, and he was also, Alan was interested in the humanoid case and Close Encounter of the Third Kind.
Was he really? Even when you knew him, he was interested in that.
How they were also. How you said?
Yeah.
I lost your.
Okay, testing 1 2. Are you back?
I lost your comment. What?
Oh, well.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you fine now. Yeah, it was interesting. So it sounds like he was into Alan Hynek. Even did not discount the third kind as well, the humanoid kind of sightings as well.
Right, and now the American ufology doesn't touch that aspect as a kind of, they are shameful to talk about the humanoid, but they cross with the abduction phenomenon, And the abduction phenomenon was something escaped from our hands, as that more implicated with the social and psychology of the states, But we don't find this type of kind of experience in other countries. It's more common of the psychological makeup of the American scenario, and North American scenario. But we have not too many cases. But we could say the abduction phenomenon is turning a pandemia, and a really pandemia in the ufology, and that affects for some researchers, including Neil deGrasse Tyson, create this kind of gap in the information and in the scientific interpretation, no? But
Yes.
Well, okay.
And
the oniric aspect, but it's most of the experience happen when you're sleeping, and that is a big kind of mystery there, no? Why happen only in the mystery? And when in the 60s and the 70s used to be abductions in the roads. The people used to have a truck, used to lose control, be under the light. The electromagnetic effects stop the truck or the car, and you lost memory, you lost conscience, and two humanoids come and they take it from your car. And that happened in many cases in Europe, in France, in Spain, in Italy, in Brazil, and but we don't have that type of phenomenon now. It looks like the phenomenon starts to be a kind of visitations to bedrooms. Right?
Yeah. In your opinion, Alex, what is your opinion of disclosure around the world? For instance, in the United States, it's not quite there, but in other countries, I understand they're not so reticent to talk about UFOs. What's your experience?
Oh, the disclosure has been happening in many countries. Unfortunately, U.S. has been the last one, the last cookie on the jar. But it started with Brazil in the 70s, 80s, and continue with Spain, continue with Italy, and continue with UK. You know, the UK was in the front runner for many years. You mentioned Nick recently in the previous hour.
Yeah.
And a kind of we have this kind of thing were happening. For example, I lectured to the MUFON the last couple of years ago about what's happening. For example, China was in association with Russia. They were create a group of bringing the subject to the scientists. And they were in the kind of the forerunner also. They tried to bring it to the UN again, as happened in 1978. This kind of thing. And nobody knows about that. And they were putting a lot of millions, the Chinese, they were putting a lot of millions in create this kind of inviting many international countries, no? Europe and South America, including US. I think Donna Schmidt was representing the U.S., the expert in Roswell. Yeah, Donna Schmidt was the one from this group. But they're still happening. But the Academy of Science of Russia were kind of pairing with the Academy of Science of China in these things. And we didn't really have too much information here on the rest. They keep it very low key, and that's what happened. But I don't see how that finished that story, no. And for example, yes, the European countries have been cooperating between for many years. For example, the Belgic flap in 1989, 1990. The Soviets worked together to research with the Air Force when they thought they have to confront the boomerang thing. And we back again. Now we start to think there are an advanced country kind of using their hidden technology. No, we're back again. The Belgian Air Force said, no, this was unknown. That they don't exist any kind of system, engines who could do this kind of thing. And that was 30 years ago. You know, we can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What is your...
And it's with the same with Italy, the same with Spain, and they were recognizing the phenomenon exists and it's not dangerous for the defense. Yeah.
Do you think that there is a disclosure agenda to actually get the information to the public soon?
Well, I hoping this is going to be some kind of democratic process in the month of June. I trust the Congress. I don't know, kind of Marco Rubio is fit enough with his political position to create a very objective kind of board. I hope they will select very objective scientists and no really people with hidden agendas, no? To kind of continue the banking. We don't want to back to the Condon report. We don't want to back to the 1960s, 68, 69, right?
Is it your understanding? I think the date was June 1st potentially, when that Senate Armed Services Committee unclassified UAP task force report is due. Is that your understanding, that it's supposedly scheduled for that period of time?
I don't know. I don't really follow too close in that chronological days, but I don't know. Our country have more kind of tragic things, as this is part of the coronavirus kind of protocol for the budgets of this year. I think the Congress have many other important resolutions to kind of.
Yeah, although I think Marco Rubio and the Senate Intelligence Committee has given them a deadline, once they passed it. Yeah. And I think
genesis of this pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's coming up soon, within the next month or so, whereas the deadline for that unclassified report. I'm not holding my breath that it's going to be very detailed in disclosure, but I'm hoping we're going to get some kind of potential confirmation of, for instance, the Admiral Wilson smoking gun UFO memo. That would be interesting to see if anyone is willing to confirm the existence of some of the information in that memo. Are you up to speed on that memo when it was released last year?
Oh, I don't know more than you could know about that memo. I don't have enough information to make a kind of deep commentary on the thing.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is in that memo, supposedly it confirms that the U.S. Military is in possession of extraterrestrial craft, not made on this planet, not made by human hands, that can travel through interstellar space, through our atmosphere, underwater, and through dimensions. That's kind of how earth-shaking that memo is. And Richard Dolan, the UFO researcher and historian, has claimed it to be the UFO leak, smoking gun memo leak of the century. And it was my client Grant Cameron who was able to find that and get it available to be released to the public. So I've been involved in that memo ever since Grant Cameron came across it back in 2019. But if there's any corroboration at all through the U.S. government of the facts of that memo or anything like it, I'm really holding my breath to see what happens on the June 1st report, if they have anything in there.
Yeah, well, we know about these reports. They could be apocryphal, and they could be kind of more made as Majestic 12 to create a cinema kind of 30 years ago, and we couldn't prove it until today. We don't know. It was really from the 40s or was really from the 80s, no?
Yeah.
That is the same with the Mussolini office of the cabinet 1933. We couldn't prove that documents were really starships in the prelude of the Second World War. So we have this kind of blueprint documents who are not really blueprints, and there are gray prints we couldn't prove. We cannot find the watermarks, we could say.
Got it. Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. Do you have the feeling that that things are going to be going along just kind of like for the next 10, 20 years? Or do you think that there is a reason why the public needs to know something sooner than that?
That is a very good question. I think we live in that suspense. We live in that uncertain period, a month, and in this kind of difficult surviving times. And really the world has been changed. We have been this obstruction of this damned virus, and we have this kind of involution in our daily hopes. And still we have a lot of courage to continue looking the stars, no? And it's a prelude also to our return to the space race. And that is great what's happening with all the expectation of Mars, and the NASA hopes to find life and projected scientific research above and below the grounds in other planets. We don't know our Earth enough, but we are projecting to go below the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. But that make a kind of this kind of gap between reality and non-reality, but I think it's going to be fast. No, 10 or 20 years. No, I think we'll be in the next few years. We are going to see amazing things.
I agree.
I think it's an acceleration. It's an acceleration of science, and it's the things are happening so fast. We don't. Poor media, poor journalism. Happens so many things. The one who screams louder have more chance to transmit his message.
Yeah.
And I hope the message are more positive and not destructive. No, but also many irrational craziness is happening right now. No, and the level of the human relations and the level of ethics, it's going to change all the justice system too, and the law system. Yeah, we saw the barbarians attacking the Congress. I never was expecting I was going to see that in my life, no?
Yeah.
And, but I think in many other levels, yes, our kind of faith in ourselves will be bring it a new brand new world.
Yeah, good point. Well, Alex, we're getting into the top of the hour here, and I think what we'll do is we'll allow you to get out here and get some sleep, and bid you adieu for the rest of the show, so you can relax. I think we don't want to push your internet connection too far, or push you as far as the time frame goes that you gave us. So I really appreciate you being with me tonight. Is there tell people about your book again and how they can get a hold of it?
Oh, my book, Mystery of the Tajos Caves, is published by Inner Traditions. Also, it's published by Simon & Schuster in Europe. And you could get it in Amazon. Yeah, it's in Amazon. Also, I have my previous book is UFOs, an Air Force Dilemma. It's about the memoirs of the Blue Book of the last director, Quintanilla. And also I have my first book, but it's only in Spanish, called Mundos Paralelos, Parallel Dimensions, Parallel Worlds. And that was a classic cult book. Unfortunately, it's not in English. I never translated it, but I'm looking.
Yeah.
To do it. And I have, I have another book I wrote about UFOs. It's coming in Europe. It's called UFOs, The Last Confrontation. It's about my field research. So many years of field research internationally. It's about UFO field cases. And I hope I will publish in English too. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And of course, people can always get a hold of you on the internet or on Amazon at Alex Chionetti, and that's Chionetti. So just want to make sure that I spelled that once for people who want to try to find you. Alex, it's been a real pleasure to spend time with you today. Thank you for joining us on Spaced Out Sunday.
Thank you, God. It was a pleasure, yes.
All right, good night now.
Bye-bye.
Was a man who had some land in eastern Washington. On his land, this man he had a deep dark hole upon. People came miles around to throw their trash down in to see how deep the hole was and listen for its end. They forced him off his land. They paid him off and sent him off down under with a plan. They dug Mel's hole and covered it up so never could be found. So no one would ever know what's deep down in Mel's ground. Yippee-yi-yi.
Well, I want to remind everyone that Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rock gets in and out of every single show. You can find out more information at bumblefoot.com. Special thanks to everyone listening in at home, in your cars, work, and on the road. Thank you for remembering the show is currently copyrighted, by the way, by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media. Yippee-yi-yi! Folks, just because together we fight for Good night, everyone. We'll see you next Sunday on Spaced Out Sunday.
Ghost Riders.